Hi Taurus, welcome to your Virgo season reading. I'm in renovation hell, so just ignore it. All right, so we've got the South Node moving into Virgo. We've got Uranus that's moved into Gemini out of your sign, and it's going to go retrograde on the 6th. We also have some consequences coming to bear that have to do around the Sun moving into Virgo and having that conjunction there with the South Node and also with Mercury. So what you have here is a perfect combination of looking backwards, feeling the consequences very deeply of things that have happened in the past 2 years, but also especially the things that have coalesced from May 2025 until now. So from May until now, you may have acquired a few bad choices that have led to some bad consequences. And now in September, especially as we get towards the end of Virgo season, you're able to make some headway where you're able to acknowledge whatever mistakes you made in the past, whatever harm they may have caused you, whatever lifelong effects you may be left with from it. And at the same time as acknowledging that, you're able to move forward. And it's beautiful because you acknowledge your mistakes. So if somebody else is making you feel really bad about your past, they're just literally bringing that energy to you incarnated in a human form, but you don't have to give into it and you don't have to believe it. You can take accountability for what you've done in the past without deeming yourself a failure or in some way flawed. And when you do that, you have this magical moment where you can go from feeling bad about what's happened in the past and really giving a lot of fuel to people who would like to see you suffer. And instead, you can transmute that into a very vibrant push forward with a lot of direction. And it all has to do with blame and shame. A lot of people right now, including some internal programming that you have, may be wanting you to blame and shame for your past. You should be ashamed of your past. You should be ashamed of the cavalier decisions that you've made. But the truth of the matter is that whatever consequences you now have to deal with are things and lessons that you had to learn one way or another. And if those lessons were learned by mistakes you've made in the past, I think that's okay. I think actually the magic of Virgo season is that forgiveness of self, where you can accept yourself fully, even the parts that have been mistakes, even the parts that have caused you pain. Now, if you're pulling backward and you're looking at all this pain as Uranus pulls back into your sign and you're thinking to yourself, this is my fault, that's where you start to trip up. None of this is your fault. These are just lessons to learn. As long as you don't fall into blame and shame, you can easily turn this into something else. So I would say at the beginning of September, perhaps the first 6 or 7 days, you may feel the full weight of, oh God, what have I done? Oh God, what have I been doing? Oh God, I should have made better choices. But in those 6 or 7 days, don't identify with that. Don't identify with the despair that you feel. Instead, wait it out. And as you wait it out, and as we get further into eclipse season, there's something that you're beginning to understand about this, which is that a lot of what you're blaming yourself for is stuff that you were tolerating from others, and it made you take it out on yourself. Things that people and instances where you should have set very hard boundaries and you didn't, you ended up paying the price for that. But that doesn't mean that it's actually your fault because you didn't set the boundary. The initial blame and the culpability still falls on them for taking advantage of you. Right? So you start to see a little nuance as the month goes on and as the Virgo season goes on. You start to see the nuance in the decisions that you've made, where responsibility falls on others. It's not that you don't want to take accountability. You may be taking too much accountability is what I'm saying. So the way that you turn that around is you begin to really be honest with yourself about the situations where you gave in to people that you shouldn't have, where you were influenced by people that you shouldn't have been, where you allowed people to roll over your boundaries, right? And what you're left with as you come into mid-September, as you've contemplated all this and had those moments that tried to pull you into the dark and say, see what you've done, this is all your fault. You don't give into that. And when you don't give into that, you begin to find that power that Mercury and Virgo has. So you have those first 6-7 days of blaming yourself, feeling bad, but then Mercury and Virgo really kicks in for you as a fellow earth sign, and until the 18th, 19th, you have this push where you feel like you know what to do. You feel like, yes, okay, I've seen the mistakes that I made in the past. I saw where I was falling short. I saw where I gave people too much grace. And I'm not doing that now. And that switch over makes everything so very clear. Mercury in Virgo clears up your sight in a way where you actually have people asking you, like, why are you so calm? Like, are you okay? Like, are you about to explode? And you're like, no, I'm calm because I see exactly through the plot. I see how I was supposed to be blamed for something that I tolerated, but I didn't actually do. I see that now the culpability of all that should fall on me, while this other person should be allowed, or this institution, this job, this friendship should be allowed to feel like they've done nothing wrong, and I can carry this burden by myself. But no, Mercury in Virgo is like, why should you carry this burden by yourself? Were you the one that created this burden by yourself? No, you weren't. Okay, so these last 2 weeks then of September, as we move into Libra season, as the sun moves into Libra on the 22nd, you have Venus just a few days before that moving into Virgo on the 19th. Now, if you're single, let's get into the juicy stuff. If you are single, this is a lovely time for you. It's easy to meet people in those last 2 weeks, and especially into October. It's so easy, it's casual, it's something that happens very, oh, you go here too? Oh, you like this coffee too? Oh my God, you took this road trip too? Oh, are we halfway around the world but from the same city? That's so funny. Very serendipitous meetings, very casual, something new, something that starts off real cool. So if you're single, there's a lot of room here for you to be the casual, cool one. And you should really lean into that. Now, on the 15th of September, if you're with someone, you're feeling all the love and all the vibe. And that 6 of Cups is definitely coming through, because you're just being that gorgeous couple that's finishing each other's sentences and making plans for the future, and you're daydreaming together, and you're, looking at like investment properties together. You're in a happy place together. And on the 15th, we have this Venus-Mars sextile that really brings that together for you. You're talking about money, you're talking about long-term plans, you're talking about investments, you're talking about the health of your family, the future of your family. Perhaps you're talking about where you want to live. You're talking about the extension of family, the extension of love, the money that can be needed for these additions to your family, for the evolution of your family, for the evolution of your connection. All of it is there, and it's all done with this air of togetherness and love and honesty. And how does money figure into that? And how do we use our money and pool our money together to create even more togetherness? So it's very innocent, it's very hopeful, and it's very different from how you feel at the beginning of the month, where no matter which way you try to turn for the first few days of September, it just feels like you've made all the wrong choices, and oh God, how could you do this, and I'm such a loser. And none of that's true. None of that's true at all. Wait it out. By the time you get to the 15th of September, you feel so good, but also you realize something. You realize at the beginning of the month, when shit is going left for you for seemingly no reason, it occurs to you suddenly within those first 5 or 6 days of September that you are in fact responsible for the vibe that you're bringing to the fucking function. And you lean into it. And by the time you get to mid-September, you're like, you know what? The vibe here, this function called life, the vibe is my responsibility, and I'm going to bring the best vibe I can, because I realize that if I make this fun, now transitioning to Mars and Scorpio across from your natal sun, or in your 7th house if you're a Taurus rising, when Mars moves into Scorpio on the 22nd, all you want to do is have fun. Now things really start to like sex up in the right way and glow up in the right way, and you look really good, and people are being super sexy and really friendly, and you feel the same way, and there's all this chemistry and all this energy between you and other people. And it's very kind of casual. Not that people aren't intense and they don't feel the way they feel, but everything seems to just flow so smoothly, so easily for you. It would be a shame at this time to let your intrusive thoughts win. Please don't let this be one of those times where you decide that you want to talk about what's happened in the past, or you want to talk about how it used to be, how it should be again, you want to blame people for things that have happened in the past, all of that is so much better resolved at the beginning of the month. So by mid-month, you can actually have some fun with people and let loose and allow yourself to have a good time because you're not holding on to the past. If you do the work at the beginning of the month of really setting yourself straight about how it doesn't matter whose fault it was. Most important, whatever culpability you need to take responsibility for, whatever you feel like is your fault, that's okay. But this identifying with failure, this identifying with the consequences that you face now. It's so easy when you're facing the consequences of your past to go back and kick that person in the past that you used to be. But no, you have to come to terms with and make peace with the version of you who made those mistakes that are causing the consequences that you're living through right now, without hating that person who you used to be and without hating the circumstances that you find yourself in now, okay? When Mars moves into Libra on the 22nd, when it comes to work especially, everybody gets super demanding. Everybody wants a piece of you. It's that time again where everyone's making you do all their labor for them. And honestly, it's a perfect time for you to break down for people the tasks that they should be doing for themselves. Once again, it's like twice a year that we got to talk about this. But with Mars and Scorpio, it really is time for you to prioritize your continued comfort. And that means that you need to tell people what they need to do, and you can't have a bunch of people dropping a bunch of shit on you. And after Mars moves into Scorpio, after Mars is done in Libra and on the 22nd it moves into Scorpio, it's time for you to be like, enough, no more. No more. Don't ask me for anything else. This is your responsibility. You're the one who's supposed to be taking care of this. You're the one who's supposed to know how to do this. Don't create false narratives. Well, I will have to deal with the consequences of the things that you were supposed to be doing and that you're supposed to know how to do. Right? Just because I'm in a season of dealing with consequences doesn't mean I'm taking on responsibilities for your mistakes. Now, let's jump back a little bit. And when we're talking about work, there's also a bit of a power struggle going on. And that starts with the Mars-Jupiter square on the 4th, where you have some level of strange competition. And you may feel this especially with someone who's supposed to be in a figure of a position of authority with you. Like, why are you even fucking competing with me? This is so confusing to me. I don't even know how to let this like tense atmosphere provoke me. This is so tense and ridiculous that I can't even be provoked by this because I'm just genuinely confused at what you think you're doing. All fucking month, people want you to take your horns out. Here you are, Mercury moves into Libra on the 18th and you're like, horns for what? I would impale you with my horns if you were at all necessary or even could keep my attention, but you can't keep my attention. And that's where we get to the ugly truth of what's actually going on in September. There is such a push, especially since Uranus moved into Gemini and now on the 6th it begins to retrograde back into Taurus. There is such a push right now amongst people who have always seen you as a device or a tool. There is such a moment of scrambling where those people who have always seen you as a means to an end are trying to figure out how they're going to survive with you breaking out of that definition of yourself and not needing to be a tool and not needing to be a helpful addition to the group, which is just you carrying everything on your back, okay? You are their biggest device or tool. And in their mind, you break in September. However, your own devices and your own tools can break as well. So it's a time where that which you rely on too much, when you should rely on yourself more, those things start to go away, right? So for you in particular, what that means is you stop allowing yourself to be used as a thing by quite a lot of people. This starts at the beginning of the month. You're already starting to have this feeling of, this doesn't feel right. I feel like my power is being taken away by me being asked to do things that people should be able to do for themselves, running back into that self-sufficiency argument, right? Where it just doesn't make sense to you. Why am I being asked to do this? But also, why am I being used like this? But also, how am I supposed to be there for myself, and especially, God forbid, in unforeseen circumstances or expenses, when I'm constantly kind of being loaned out as a tool? You'll even find that your family members do this. Well, they will volunteer your services, your information, your time, your sweat equity, right? There is a realization that starts to brew as Uranus retrogrades back into your sign, where you understand how even when you were an agent of chaos with Uranus firmly in your sign, you were still being used. You're always being seen and maneuvered and placed on a board like an enormously valuable asset. And although there is a lovely sentiment to that, it's ultimately very degrading, and it's ultimately really dehumanizing, because you're not an asset. Yes, you are incredibly valuable, but after a while you start to feel like a chump when you're moved around like a piece on a board, right? So what I would suggest, looking over the month as we have here and with the cards in front of us, what I would suggest is really be careful and be very deliberate and purposeful in the definitions that you use concerning yourself right now. Maybe it's time to list out some new definitions. Maybe it's time to, give into that Jupiter in Cancer and just dream really, really big and start from scratch. And the one thing you want to eliminate from jump right at the beginning of September is that need to over-identify with your mistakes. Yes, it is a season of dealing with consequences. However, if you don't hate yourself for what you've been through, if you face the consequences of your behavior and actions head on, if you own your mistakes, you will find that you're able to excel way past whatever sense of self you've had up until this point, and yet it will irritate everybody around you that you no longer want to beat yourself up. And as that becomes clear to you, you'll have this horrifying realization that people rely on your self-flagellation to keep you in check. They don't need to keep you in check. Your self-hate does it for you. And that self-hate, it's also just masked insecurity and inadequacy. It's easier to think of yourself as someone who's made mistakes, who couldn't recover from those mistakes, who's a bit of a fuck up, who has to carry the burden of this, that, and the other people's mistakes, your own mistakes. It's easier to see yourself that way. It's easier to have all your stresses overlap on one another so you can continue to excuse how you feel. But how you feel has nothing to do with that. How you feel has everything to do with the fact that you have allowed yourself to be used as an asset. And for a while, especially when we're very young, we don't know the difference between being used as an asset and being loved for who we really are, right? So it feels a little late for some of us to come to this realization now and be like, wow, that's why there's so much scrutiny around what I'm doing, because I'm really being used as an asset. The inhuman level of scrutiny that I'm under, of criticism, especially in this Virgo season, it makes sense if I'm a piece that's got to be moved around the board, and my value to you is not in who I am, but what I am. Not who I am or how I feel, but what I can do. Then it makes sense for people to be upset with you if your actions have created consequences that make their life somehow less easy because your value is being called into question in a way that is very important to them because they've built foundations on you. Okay? So yes, it's a time to own your mistakes, and yes, it's a time to own the consequences of your past loves and your past actions and places where you gave in your boundaries. But look at this beautiful door of understanding that's opening at the same time while you're, facing the consequences head on, being very deliberate, being a very mature, emotionally mature, self-sustaining adult. At the same time, you're getting such an important and vivid glimpse into the way you are used, your usefulness, and how that usefulness can be a trap, and how that usefulness can keep you from dreaming big, how that usefulness can keep you from fully expressing all of that human expression that you have in you, all these things that you want to do that one becomes afraid to do because it might be wrong or it might create more consequences that I can't deal with. This is not a time for you to face what's happened in the past and how it affects you now so you can be filled with fear. It's a time to replace all of these realizations of how you got where you are. It's time to replace them with confidence, with ambition, with looking into the future. Okay, you got here how you got here. Okay, you're dealing with what you're dealing with because of the way it's been in the past. Okay, that's fine. But now we move forward. Mars spends time in Libra, and then on the 22nd, Mars will move into Scorpio across from you. And what does it say? It says that you have to stop letting people define you by what they find value in. Because as soon as you can't be that valuable player on the board for them, my goodness, how quickly you get knocked off the board. And this is a season of getting knocked so completely off the board, and then people scrambling and realizing later, oh, no, I actually need that piece. Wait, I actually need that piece. That piece is gone. That piece woke up, became self-aware, and was like, oh, yeah, I can handle the consequences of my actions. But you know what I can't handle? I can't handle you pretending that you're not using me, siphoning off of me, pushing me around here and there like a piece on the board. I can't overlook that anymore. And it's not even because you need that overabundance of energy for yourself. It's nothing like that. It's not that at all. It's just that you're beginning to finally feel how caged in you can get by the people who profess to need you and love you the most, and even by those who compliment you the most or get in your face the most, this kind of ingratiating behavior. So a lot of clarity around mistakes, dealing with mistakes, owning your mistakes, empowering your future. When you know your value, it becomes impossible to push you around on a board like a piece of value, because that only works when they know how valuable you are and you have no idea. So if you've had low self-esteem in the past, I know you know what I'm talking about. You know what it feels like to be moved around like a piece. But what if that piece just gained self-awareness one day and trotted away on its own? Because that's what September is like for you. And those people, no matter how much they say they love you, when they're pushing you around on that board, no matter how much they say they love you, the minute you start thinking for yourself, the minute you start really owning up to your choices and what they've brought you, you become completely uncontrollable. Usually people try to control you with their sentiments. They wouldn't be foolish enough to be like, Taurus, do this. No, it's, a sob story, a sad story, a tragedy. Oh, meow, 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 meow. I need this, I need that. Oh my God. But you're all out of sympathy. By the end of September, you're like, yeah, I don't care how you've gotten here. Why were you using me to begin with? You should be able to sustain what you're doing. My brain is working faster than the words are coming out. You should be able to sustain this on your own. Why do I have to do it? And if you've had this conversation before, can I just say, how long do you want to stay stuck? Because Mars in Scorpio is going to make you feel like you need to get all the way the fuck out of that situation. How long do you want to stay stuck? How long do you want to have the same conversation about how you're being treated and how you're being used and how you're being manipulated? How many times do you have that conversation before you realize that the person that you're telling this to knows exactly what they're doing, and the only thing that's going to change is you're going to wake up tomorrow with like love amnesia? This is the time. September is that moment where you say to yourself with a completely clear mind and clean heart, the only people that are allowed to be in my life right now are the people who see me for who I am and don't want to use me for it. They just love me. And those of you who feel really heartbroken because it's a season where you're figuring out how many people have been using you, how many people are actually disingenuous, it's incredibly disruptive to figure this stuff out. It's nasty work. People can be so fucking nasty. People are so hard to trust when you are a person who overflows with abundance. People can so easily become incredibly envious of you, do the ugliest shit you can imagine. and they do it at the drop of a dime, because internally there was always this hating going on. Internally there was always this deep sense of disbelief that you've got things and do things and have things and know things and get things and know people and go places that they couldn't even dream of. Right? There's always been this unsaid lack of competition between you and others, not because they wouldn't like to compete, but because it's so painfully obvious that if they ever tried to compete, they would lose so badly. And you're realizing that maybe that's why people compete with you in all these other secret ways. And one of the ways that they compete with you, and you don't even realize it because you're just doing things out of the goodness of your heart, is that they use you, and they use you in a way where it's almost like the joke's on you. Everybody else knows that you're being used like a pack animal. Everybody else knows you're being made to do the work, but somehow, because you are you don't know. Well, now in September, you're beginning to figure out that the joke's on you, and guess what? I don't think you're very happy about it. I think you've got a real issue with the joke being on you. And yeah, I would too. You know, as a Vedic Taurus, I feel your pain. Yes, it is very hard to wake up to the reality that you have been made a fool out of. And in some instances, that has had a very serious real world effect. It's deeply unpleasant. But look at it this way. How much more unpleasant would it be to not know this and continue living in a space where you're essentially being mocked and used at the same time? That's the worst part. It's like, okay, you're using me, but you also have to make fun of the fact that I don't realize that you're using me. And then you leave me to deal with the consequences of this shit by myself. And on top of that, I'm the moron in the story. When you retell the story, I'm the fucking dummy. Fuck you. That's what's going on. So there's a lot of anger that's going to come up out of these realizations. Not a disruptive month, actually, but there's a lot of anger around this. Get that anger out. Move your fucking body. Go do something. Don't fight with nobody. Don't even get into this with anybody. These are things that are you are understanding with you. There is no reason to actually have this conversation with anyone, because if you try to have this conversation, how's it going to go? Oh, I realize that you've been treating me more like an asset instead of a human being. Probably gonna say something fucking stupid like, but you're such a valuable asset. I thought you would love being treated that way because you're a Taurus, you know? Stupid shit. No, nobody wants to be dehumanized that way. Even if what you're portraying me to be is something so valuable, so precious, it's still an it. It's still a thing. I'm still not a thing, right? So you are the breaker of their most valuable device, which is you. But as you're breaking away from them and from the suppositions that have kept you tied to them, whoever the them might be, make sure not to break yourself. Make sure not to take any of this out on you. Make sure you don't blame yourself for a moment for how you've been treated. The fact that people are fucking diabolical and they will do shit like this and use people, especially people who have good hearts and who are essentially very simple in their love, that's just treacherous on their part. It has nothing to do with you, right? So as you sort through all this, the one thing I want you to keep in your mind, especially with the highs and lows, the highs and lows of September, the one thing I want you to keep central in your mind is that none of this is your fault. None of this is your fault. It is just time now to completely own your power and value. And you can throw that shit around the way you want to, according to who you want to throw it around to and how you want to throw that shit around. It's no longer anybody else's fucking game. They have no say any longer. And it's a beautiful thing, because you know what you realize in September? Why the fuck should anyone else have a say in what the fuck I'm doing, how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it, when I'm the only one that's got to pay for what happens? So if I'm the one who has to pay, then I'm the one who's gonna fucking play. You don't get to play and then I have to pay. Nah, fuck you. That's what you're left with. That's the reading in a nutshell. So that's Virgo season for you. Now, the other thing that I would suggest that I think is very important in this season is that you embrace that time alone as much as possible. Sounds a bit trite, you know, Virgo season, hermit mode. Do your poetic, artistic, lonely thing and just lean into it and revel in how powerful it makes you feel. Happy Virgo season. Happy September.